Warrantless Searches, Part 3. Hey guys, what's going on? I hope you are having a fantastic week so far. So in the last episode, we talked about the next 5 of 15 warrant exceptions that are recognized by the US Supreme Court. I'm going to put links to the first and the second video in the description box below. Now, like I've stated in the last 2 videos, this is not to be considered as legal advice. This is just to throw some education your way. Warrant exception number 11, airport and mass transit searches. Now, airport and mass transit searches started in the 60s and 70s after hijackings started taking place. Then, of course, renewed concern came about after 9/11. Now, the TSA actually has a plethora of tools that are available to them. Magnetometers, x-rays, canines, all these tools can be utilized to search passengers. Under United States versus Hersburn, it says, search in an airport gate area or security checkpoint does not require probable cause or even reasonable suspicion, but rather the mere suspicion of possible illegal activity. That seems pretty vague to me. Now, the TSA has actually established something called the VIPR team. The VIPR team actually conducts random searches in airports, in bus terminals, all different areas. I was actually going to say the VIPR team is the equivalent of a SWAT team. I don't want to be rude, so I'll just use the term SWAT team loosely. Rumor has it when you are accepted onto the VIPR squad, you are actually given 2 metal detectors as well as a pair of Nikes to make you more aerodynamic when you fight terrorists.
Oh! No, sick burn, bro! Sick burn!
Every case that has gone before court that has challenged mass transit searches has flopped. Warrant exception number 12. Border searches. But Officer 401, what do you mean border searches? There's videos all over YouTube of people just driving through checkpoints. Here's the deal, guys. I actually asked a judge himself regarding border searches, and his exact words were, the only reason people drive through those checkpoints at the border is because they're allowed to. It's because there's either a new agent working the gate, or it might be somebody that doesn't understand what the scope of their authority is. That's right, search at a border incident to entrance into the United States is not considered a Fourth Amendment violation. There's no warrant requirement for that. The US Supreme Court itself says, search is made at the border pursuant to the long-standing right of the sovereign, which is us, that's our nation, to protect itself by stopping and examining persons and property crossing into this country are reasonable simply by the virtue of the fact that they may occur at the border. Seems pretty cut and dry to me. Everyone, including US citizens, are subject to search at the border. It's funny, I actually got a text message the other day from a buddy of mine who is a US Customs agent, and he said, on your 3rd video, part 3, I'm assuming that you're going to be talking about border searches.
Damn right.
What was interesting about our conversation is he went on to tell me basically that the only people that give him any type of hassle at a border are entitled US citizens. That's it. Nobody else really gives you any problems. Now, obviously, when he says entitlement, he's not bashing every US citizen, but those are the groups of people that give him the most problems. But I thought it was interesting to hear his side of it, especially considering he works on a border. Warrant exception number 13, courthouses and public buildings. A trial judge has the inherent right to protect order in his court. In McMorris versus Alioto, the court in effect approved the use of metal detection for people going into courthouses. Downing versus Kudzig says that searches of courthouses and other government buildings, the courts recognize the very real threat to public safety that arose from the outburst, acts of violence, bombing of federal buildings, and hundreds of bomb threats, resulting in massive evacuations of federal property. So yes, the government has every right to search you whenever you are going into a courthouse. There's actually an interesting video on YouTube I remember seeing of this guy trying to push past the officers that were working there. They were wearing suits, and the officer pushes them back and then pulls out a taser, and this guy basically told him, no, you are going to allow me in, and I'm bringing my camera. And the officer was not having it. Well, the guy ends up getting tased.
Don't touch me.
You're not going in, sir.
Let the record show that you just battered me.
And the officer was perfectly justified in doing so. He was protecting the court. That was his job. Warrant exception number 14, places of recreation and entertainment. Now, there's an interesting case from Johnson versus Tampa Sports Authority in 2008 that basically says that when you sign up as a ticket or season holder of a ticket, you are basically waiving your right to a search at the opening of this event. So if you ever look at your football tickets or other season passes, whatever you have, pay attention to the fine print. A lot of the times it will say you are going to be subject to search, and by accepting this ticket and showing up voluntarily, you are now waiving those rights. Now the interesting thing here is if officers were working the gate, there would be a lot more restrictions and the Fourth Amendment would come into play within reason. So if you ever notice, whenever you go to a game, there's usually officers that are kind of looking over the crowd, but they're not really working the gates themselves. That's where they hire private security. Private security does not have any Fourth Amendment expectations that they have to abide by. Again, private security is not a government entity. Now, for general public events, there needs to be a special need. There must be some definitive basis to believe that some terrorist attack might occur. Now, obviously, we know these days that is not very hard to articulate, so most huge events are going to have some sort of search prior to going into the venue. Last but not least, warrant exception number 15, vehicle searches. Under Carroll versus the United States in 1925, which later became known as the Carroll Doctrine, the court held that if there was probable cause to believe there was evidence inside the vehicle and exigent circumstances exist, that the officers can then search that vehicle. Under United States versus Watts, which is a 2003 case, under federal law, the warrantless search of an automobile under the automobile exception to the warrant requirement of the Fourth Amendment does not require exigent circumstances beyond the exigency of the mobility of a functioning vehicle. So basically, if a vehicle is mobile, you don't need exigent circumstances. However, in a 2009 case called Arizona versus Gant, officers can only search for the fruits of the crime that are suspected from the arrest. So that means if I pull somebody over and it turns out they have a suspended license, I cannot search their car incident to arrest just because they have a suspended license anymore. Now, when I first started policing, if you arrested somebody for a suspended license, you could search their car bumper to bumper. It was incident to arrest. That was part of the deal. It's kind of like searching their person. That has now changed with Arizona v. Gant, and that's very important, especially for older officers, really, because they're kind of still stuck in their ways. But it's important for them to understand Arizona v. Gant. I have no reason to search a car for somebody who has a suspended license. I'm not going to find a suspended license in a car. There you guys have it. That is it. That is all 15 exceptions to the warrant requirement that are recognized by the U.S. Supreme Court. Now, I could actually do a video on each one of these and make it its own video because there's so much to talk about on each of these, and maybe that's something I'll do down the road. But for right now, I just kind of wanted to give you guys an overall gist of what these were. Again, I didn't want to make a 5-minute video just throwing them all in there. I want to give you guys some examples. But hopefully now you have a little bit better understanding of what these exceptions to the warrant requirement are, and that way you know your rights. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm going to be doing another one soon, focusing on the Fourth Amendment. So look forward to that, and I will see you guys very, very soon.